What if your car could say no? Not because it's broken, not because it's out of gas, but because it just doesn't approve of where you're going, or when you're going, or how you're driving. You hit the gas and it refuses. You try to park and it reroutes. You own it, you paid for it, but it doesn't listen. This isn't science fiction. It's already happening. Your car is becoming a gatekeeper. It tracks you, predicts you, corrects you, and slowly, line by line of code, it's deciding what freedom means. Today, we're talking about a future where your car doesn't just drive for you, it drives over you. And the scariest part, you might not even notice it happening until one day you get in the driver's seat and realize you are no longer the one driving. Chapter 1. The Invisible Leash. There's always been something sacred about owning a car. It's more than a tool, it's freedom, a way to leave when you want, go where you want, no questions asked. That's why so many people still dream about getting their first car. It's the moment life opens up. But quietly, that dream is changing, and if you're not paying close attention, you might not even notice what's being taken away until it's already gone. Because here's the truth, your car isn't just a machine anymore, it's a computer, and that computer is connected constantly, not just to satellites or traffic updates, but to companies, to algorithms, to terms of service you didn't write. And all of that connection is starting to come with conditions. Let's talk about geofencing. It sounds like some high level security feature, but it's already being used in ways that reshape where you're allowed to drive. In New York City, the company Revel operates electric mopeds that only work inside a designated zone. Try to drive outside it, and the moped slows down or stops. That's expected for a rental vehicle, but the same technology is now making its way into private cars. Rental companies like Hertz have already implemented geofencing to limit where renters can go. Rent a car in Florida and it might be prohibited from entering neighboring states. Cross that invisible boundary, and some vehicles start sending alerts or tracking signals automatically. Others might disable features. Now, imagine a future where your own car, bought and paid for, refuses to start because you're parked in the wrong zip code, or because the road ahead passes through a zone flagged as restricted or high risk. This is already happening in other industries. Construction companies that lease out heavy equipment often use geofencing to restrict a bulldozer or crane to one job site. If it's moved off that site, it shuts down. The tech works, and what works for bulldozers can easily be ported to sedans and SUVs. But it gets even subtler. Because geofencing is just the beginning. The next layer is predictive control, and this one's harder to see coming because it feels like your car is just being smart, helpful even, until it isn't. Modern cars gather immense amounts of data. Teslas, for example, are equipped with cameras inside and out, and they constantly collect information about where you go, how fast you drive, when you brake, what music you listen to, and what areas you frequent. On the surface, that data might be used to improve safety or convenience, but increasingly, it's used to shape your behavior. Here's a real example. In London, cars that enter the ultra low emission zone are charged a daily fee. Navigation systems in certain vehicles now automatically reroute drivers to avoid those zones, sometimes without asking. Not because the driver requested it, but because the system assumes it's better to avoid the fine. But what happens when your car won't let you enter at all? When it just refuses to go where you told it to because an algorithm decided it's not worth the cost? The same logic is spreading to insurance. Root Insurance, a US based startup, uses telematics data to track where and how you drive. That means if you routinely travel through areas statistically linked with accidents or crime, your premium can go up, even if you've never had a single incident. Now, extend that. What if your car doesn't just record that information for insurers, but begins responding to it? You drive into a flagged zone and the car starts to slow down. or locks the doors automatically, or routes you away entirely, not because of a law, because of a prediction. And here's where things start to feel different. We're not talking about machines making suggestions. We're talking about machines making decisions. A GPS used to give you three routes. Now it might only give you one. And it's not just avoiding traffic, it's avoiding risk or cost or rules you never agreed to. One more example, Tesla's auto park feature will sometimes refuse to park in garages that aren't well lit or that it can't scan properly. It just gives up. Even if you're fine with the risk, the car isn't. Its judgment overrides yours. There's a chilling detail buried in all this. These limits aren't always visible. There's no flashing red light, no cop saying, you can't go here. You just notice one day that your route options are fewer, that your car hesitates when you turn onto a certain street, that it redirects you more often than it used to. Bit by bit, line by line of software, your freedom gets rewritten. It's not dramatic, it's quiet, efficient, invisible, and that's why it's dangerous. Because it's not just about your car anymore. It's about how easily we're learning to accept machines with preferences, machines that nudge us, that correct us, that think they know better. And the worst part? Sometimes they do. Sometimes they're right. But if we let that go unchallenged, the definition of freedom to drive will change without a single law being passed. Chapter 2: The Digital Gatekeeper. We've seen how modern vehicles can restrict where you go. But now let's go deeper, beyond geofences and predictive nudges, and ask a harder question. Who actually decides what your car lets you do? Because the moment a car can deny you access to certain places, it's already more than a machine. It's a gatekeeper, one that obeys rules you didn't write and answers to someone else entirely. Let's start with the growing trend of subscription based access. This isn't science fiction, it's happening right now. In 2022, BMW rolled out a paywall for heated seats in several countries. The hardware was already installed in the cars, but unless drivers paid $18 a month, the feature was locked. It wasn't a hardware upgrade, it was just a software permission. Mercedes has experimented with similar pay for performance unlocks. Toyota, Audi, Tesla, and GM have also started offering features like remote start, adaptive cruise control, and parking assist, but only if you keep paying. Miss a payment or cancel a subscription, and those functions disappear overnight. The buttons might still be there, but they won't work. Now, imagine that same system applied to the places you can go. What if you want to drive into a city center during rush hour, but that requires a premium mobility package? And because you didn't pay this month, your car simply refuses to enter. Not because of traffic, not because of legality, but because your account doesn't have the right credentials. No toll gate, no traffic cop, just a software wall that turns a public road into a private tier. This isn't hypothetical. It's the logical next step in a model where software defines the capabilities of your machine. And that model isn't just about convenience. It opens the door to control, control based not on the car's performance, but on your behavior. Take what Ford filed in 2023. It was a patent for a system that would allow the car to enforce repossession remotely if the owner missed payments. It could start by disabling non essential features like the stereo or the air conditioning. Then it could lock the doors. Eventually, if you still didn't pay, it could activate the self-driving mode and move the car out of your driveway on its own to a place where it could be recovered. No knock on the door, no legal negotiation, just silent enforcement through code. And this kind of enforcement doesn't need to be limited to finance. Picture a city where unpaid parking tickets are logged in a shared municipal database. One day, you go to start your car and find it's been disabled until you settle the fine. Or imagine a city using emissions data to restrict movement during a smog alert. Your car gets the signal and locks out certain roads, or maybe just shuts down completely until the alert lifts. You didn't make the choice. The system did. Some of this is already real. In China, cities like Shanghai have implemented restrictions where certain vehicles, usually based on license plate and emissions rating, are barred from entering designated areas. The enforcement is automated. License plate scanners track vehicles in real time. Fines are issued without human interaction. Now, consider what happens when the enforcement system is inside your car instead of outside it. When it's not the city watching your car, but your car watching you. In the US and Europe, the same logic is being tested through insurance. Telematics based policies, like those offered by Progressive, Allstate, and Root, track your driving habits and adjust your premiums accordingly. That's already a trade off. But what happens when the consequences go beyond cost? If your car knows that you often drive late at night in high crime areas, it might start limiting your acceleration or rerouting you away from certain streets, not because you're in danger, just because the algorithm decided it was statistically unfavorable. That's not a safety feature, that's behavioral conditioning. It gets even murkier when we consider shared or semi autonomous ownership models. Automakers and startups are heavily investing in fleet based transportation. The car you buy might still be yours, technically, but it's also part of a larger network, a system optimized for efficiency, traffic flow, energy conservation. If there's an emergency or congestion downtown, your car might be rerouted by city level algorithms. You had a destination. The system had a different priority, and your car listened to it instead of you. Tesla has floated this idea with its robotaxi vision. In the future, you might be able to send your car out during the day to earn money giving rides while you're at work. Sounds great, but it also means your car will operate on someone else's schedule. It could be redirected, rerouted, held back, maybe even modified remotely by Tesla. You still own it, you just don't control it. And here's the unsettling truth. Once that control is digital, once it's embedded in the code and connected to a network, you don't get to negotiate with it. There's no appeal, no override. The system doesn't have to explain. It doesn't care if you're late for work or trying to get to your kid's school or just want to drive into town. If the rules say no, the gate stays closed. It's a fundamental shift. You're no longer the operator, you're a user, and your access is conditional on payments, on behavior, on compliance with a system that's invisible, unaccountable, and constantly changing. In the next chapter, we'll talk about what people are doing to push back. Some are resisting, others are adapting. But the big question remains, how do you stay in control in a world where control is being quietly written out of the script? Chapter 3, Taking Back the Wheel. So, what do we do now? We've seen how the car, once a symbol of freedom, is slowly becoming a tool of conditional access. We've gone from keys in the ignition to software deciding where we can go, how fast we can drive, and even whether the car starts at all. It's easy to feel outmatched. After all, these changes are buried in code, terms of service, and remote updates you never see. But the story doesn't end here. Because while this shift is accelerating, so is the response. Let's start with resistance, because it's already happening. A growing number of car buyers are choosing older, pre connected vehicles on purpose. The used car market is seeing a spike in demand for models built before the modern wave of telematics and subscription systems. Some mechanics even specialize in desmarting newer vehicles, removing or disabling tracking modules, telemetry units, and subscription linked ECUs. It's not just a style preference. For some drivers, it's the only way to guarantee true ownership and control. There's also a black market growing around vehicle software modification. Think of it as the car equivalent of jailbreaking a smartphone. Drivers are bypassing geofence restrictions, unlocking premium features without paying the subscription, or disabling remote kill switches. These modifications are often illegal and risky, voiding warranties, breaking copyright law, even triggering system errors. But they exist because people feel boxed in by rules they never agreed to. The demand is real. When ownership feels hollow, people look for workarounds. But not everyone is fighting it. Many are adapting, and in some ways, even welcoming the change. Because, let's be honest, there's real convenience here. A car that parks itself, avoids traffic, finds the cheapest charging station, alerts you before something breaks. These are upgrades from a comfort standpoint. For urban dwellers who rarely drive long distances, features like road based speed adjustment or congestion avoidance AI can feel like progress. And for parents, the ability to geofence a teen's driving radius might feel like peace of mind, not surveillance. This is how the transformation spreads, not by force, but by utility. Little by little, we hand over decision making to software because it feels easier, safer, smarter, until one day it becomes normal that a car refuses to go somewhere and nobody questions it anymore. But here's where the deeper conversation begins. What happens when that smart system starts to reflect human bias? When an algorithm trained on historical data decides which neighborhoods are high risk or which driver behaviors signal undesirable patterns. In places like the US, where neighborhoods have long been segregated by race and income, that could mean automated systems begin reinforcing inequalities without anyone programming them to. A road blocked here, a score lowered there, access denied not by policy but by pattern recognition. And let's not ignore the global dimension. In 2023, a UN working group raised alarms about automated systems in transportation being deployed without public oversight. The fear isn't just technical, it's ethical. Who's deciding what's safe, what's risky, what's allowed? And if that authority lives inside a piece of software, how do you hold it accountable? This is where regulation needs to catch up fast. There's already some momentum. In Massachusetts, voters passed a ballot initiative requiring car manufacturers to make telematics data available to vehicle owners and independent repair shops. The idea is simple. If you paid for the car, you should have access to the data it generates. No exceptions. That law has become a national model for right to repair efforts. And now, people are pushing to extend those rights to digital features and remote access systems too. In Europe, the conversation is growing around digital sovereignty. The idea that users should have control over the digital systems embedded in the products they own. Germany and France have both called for stricter rules around over the air updates and mandatory transparency for what software is doing behind the scenes. But regulation alone isn't enough. What we really need is a cultural reset, a reminder that mobility is a right, not a subscription. That the ability to move through space freely, safely, and privately is fundamental in a functioning democracy. We shouldn't be trading that away just because an app made parking easier. There's also a growing community of technologists and activists building alternatives, open source vehicle software, privacy respecting EV platforms, cooperatively owned mobility systems that don't rely on constant surveillance or behavioral scoring. These projects are small now, but they're real and they're growing because some people see the direction we're heading and want to chart a different path. So, where does that leave us? It leaves us with a choice, not a simple one, not a binary, but a choice about what kind of relationship we want to have with the machines that move us. Do we want cars that serve us or systems that evaluate us? Do we want to drive or be driven, not just physically, but ideologically? Because here's the truth, this shift isn't just about convenience or profit or even safety. It's about control. And once we hand it over, getting it back won't be easy. So the next time your car offers a software update or suggests a new mobility feature, pause. Ask what's changing. Ask who benefits. Ask what you're trading away. Because one day you might get in the driver's seat and realize that the decisions were made before you even touched the wheel. And if that happens, the real question won't be where are we going? It'll be who's driving. Thanks for watching. Check out the references in the description to explore further.